What are you building your life around? Success, security, comfort, money, approval? Because whether we realize it or not, every person has a kingdom, something that sits at the center, something that gets our attention, our energy, our trust. And in Matthew 6 and Luke 12, Jesus asks a question that cuts through everything. What if you've spent your whole life building a kingdom that won't last? Because Jesus didn't come merely to help us improve our lives. He came to invite us into a completely different kingdom. When Jesus Christ talks about the kingdom of God, he's not talking about a place on a map. He's talking about God's rule, God's authority, God's reign over every part of life. The people listening to Jesus expected a political kingdom, a military kingdom, a kingdom that would overthrow Rome. But Jesus teaches something radically different. The kingdom begins in the heart. It changes people from the inside out, and its values are completely different from the values of the world. In Matthew 6, Jesus says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth." Why? Because earthly treasures don't last. They can be lost, stolen, destroyed, left behind. Then Jesus says, "Store up treasures in heaven." In other words, invest your life in what lasts forever. And then comes one of his most powerful statements. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say your treasure follows your heart. He says your heart follows your treasure. What you prioritize eventually shapes who you become. Jesus presents a choice. Two masters, two kingdoms, two directions. You cannot serve both God and money. Notice he doesn't say it's difficult. He says it's impossible, because eventually one will rule the other. One will sit on the throne of your heart. The question is, who is king? Then Jesus addresses something nearly everyone struggles with: worry, food, clothing, provision, the future, the unknown. And Jesus says, look at the birds. Birds don't own barns. Birds don't control tomorrow. Yet God feeds them. Then he says, look at the flowers. They don't manufacture beauty, yet God clothes them with splendor. Jesus is teaching a profound kingdom principle. If God cares for creation, how much more does he care for you? Worry often reveals where our trust truly rests. In Luke 12, Jesus tells a parable. A wealthy man has an incredible harvest. His solution? Build bigger barns, store more, keep accumulating. Then he says to himself, take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God calls him a fool. Why? Was he wealthy? No. Was success the problem? No. The problem was that he built his life around temporary things. He planned for everything except eternity. He prepared for retirement, but not for God. And Jesus concludes, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Then comes one of the most famous teachings Jesus ever gave. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Notice the order. Not seek God second. Not seek God when convenient. Not seek God after everything else is handled. Seek first, because whatever is first shapes everything that follows. Jesus isn't teaching people to ignore responsibilities. He's teaching them to reorder priorities. The kingdom is not an addition to life. It's the center of life. When God's kingdom is first, money finds its proper place. Success finds its proper place. Relationships find their proper place. Worry loses its grip, because the king is where he belongs. The kingdom of God changes the question we ask. Most people ask, what do I want? Kingdom people ask, what does God want? Most people ask, how can I build my life? Kingdom people ask, how can my life serve the king? This is why Jesus' teaching was so revolutionary. He wasn't offering self-improvement. He was announcing a new reality, a new king, a new way to live. So let's make this personal. If someone examined your calendar, your spending, your attention, your priorities, what would they conclude sits on the throne of your life? Because every day we are choosing which kingdom we serve. And Jesus' invitation remains the same. Seek first the kingdom, trust the king, live for what lasts. God's kingdom is the only kingdom that lasts forever. Stop building your life around temporary treasures. Put God's kingdom first and trust Him with everything else. When the kingdom comes first, everything else finds its proper place. Understand the word, trust the Lord, walk it out. Bible scholars, the next Bible story is waiting. Don't miss it.